Okay, so for our tool from Module 8, I'm going to talk a little bit about the vagus nerve and myofascial release. And I'm not going to actually demo these techniques for you here. I've got some different pictures and things. So one reason I'm not going to demo is because it's really hard to demo these things on a video, not impossible. I do work some of these things into our practices that we're doing. But also I think once you see the kind of quote-unquote rules that I'll give you for myofascial release work, you can see how, again, it is a tool for yourself, a tool that you can use, a tool that you can help other people to tap into. But again, a lot of it is just kind of exploration on your own. So the vagus nerve, also known as the wandering nerve, this is one of my favorite kind of discoveries via yoga that I made in a Bo Forbes workshop, because that's where I learned most of the wonderful things that I know about yoga, some of the wonderful things I know about yoga. So when I first heard this vagus nerve and the wandering nerve and kind of saw some pictures and visualizations of this, it's like this kind of alien inside of us. I'm a sci-fi nerd, so maybe that image doesn't appeal to you, but it does to me. So the vagus nerve, the wandering nerve, so this is the only cranial nerve that leaves the head and the neck area. Goes, as we can see through the illustration here, goes all throughout the body, and we can just see where all of those nerves connect into all of our different organs and systems. 80% of the vagus nerve's fibers send signals from the body to the brain. And tapping into the parasympathetic nervous system via our breath, and the vagus nerve is part of that kind of relaxation, rest and digest aspect of yoga. So I've introduced Bo Forbes and football before, even just slowing the breath, extending the exhale, breathing into the belly and the lower body. All of those things are helping to tap into and access the vagus nerve. So when we think about the vagus nerve as well, thinking about the way that our body responds to our environment and sends those signals back to the brain, and so how very important it is to know more about the system and be able to tap into it when we need those different aspects. Related here is fascia. And there's a little bit more about fascia on page 20 and 21 of our Science of Yoga book, and just a few quotes from her on that. So the fascia, as you can see from this picture here, is often described as like a web throughout the body, like a spider web, this kind of fibrous, tendrily kind of substance, and it's this network within our body, this body-wide network. It separates the parts, yet it integrates the whole. It's found around the muscles as well as the vital organs. It's woven throughout the body. So again, these images I like, right? Like the wandering nerve, but then also this woven network that runs throughout our bodies, and it's part of our kind of larger systems and the ways in which some of our different systems connect together, for instance. So when we're doing football, for instance, so we tap into the vagus nerve and we're working into the fascia, we're doing that myofascial release. We might all of a sudden notice, like, oh, my shoulder feels a lot better than it did. What's the relationship between the foot and the shoulder? Like, right? It's partly through that fascial system. In the book, she also mentions that there's kind of this crisscross kind of pattern to the fascia, and that inactivity and aging seem to cause us to lose the structural integrity of our fascia, and that different yoga poses, asanas, and different techniques can help us to actually reactivate that system. Another important thing about fascia is that it's something that as we're doing that myofascial release work, we're hydrating the fascia. Our water runs through the fascia even after we pass away. The fascia continues to pump water through that system. So it's a system that lives on beyond our consciousness, perhaps, at least temporarily. So in terms of myofascial release, again, there's a lot of information online, and like all information online, you want to take what's helpful and practice and study for yourself. So a lot of different tools, a lot of different techniques. This picture just gives like a bunch of different equipment that you might use. I'm focused here on the ball work, which can be done with tennis balls or lacrosse balls. You can see here racquet balls, softballs, baseballs. I like the tennis balls. I like the give and the softness, but also the firmness of tennis balls. Lacrosse balls for me are just too hard and too intense. I'm not focusing on roller work here, foam roller work here, but if you have not experienced foam rollers before, please try it out. They are amazing. And there again are different kinds of foam rollers. So like this blue one here is tends to be a little bit softer. This orange one, I've used it before. It's pretty hard, pretty intense. So different kinds of foam, different kinds of hardness or softness to that foam. Again, this wavy tool here, it's a version of, there's another one called the Theracane, and it's a really nice self-use tool. Sometimes you can get the balls that are connected, and some people like that kind of that connection, or you can put the tennis balls into a sock. Anyway, moral of the story is there's a lot of different tools to use, and choose the one that's right for you. So lots of really important things to keep in mind. So, and I was going to say most importantly, but they're all very important, but it is perhaps most important to go slow with this. Take your time. I usually do not do a lot of this work in yoga classes because there just is not time. Like I'll do little techniques here and there in a way to kind of introduce people to those techniques. When I do yoga workshops or retreats, sometimes we lie down on the floor, we start rolling around with our tennis balls, and like hours pass. Okay, maybe not hours, but a long time passes. You can really get lost in this work, and every time I do it, I'm like, why don't I do this every day? Of course, the answer is we're busy, we forget. Take your time, go slow. Pay attention to the sensation and the pressure. Again, if it feels good, do it. If it hurts, don't do it. This is so important for myofascial release work. It is uncomfortable. It can be painful, and we want to be able to recognize the good pain versus the bad pain. Breathe. It's really easy to start working through these techniques and you forget to breathe. One of the best things that you can do is, again, go slow, take your time, pay attention, and continue to breathe in through the nose, out through the nose. Generally, again, a little kind of rule is that we're looking for those tight spaces between the bones. So we don't want to like roll directly on the spine. We don't want to roll directly on the bones. We want to find those in between spaces because we're working into our connective tissues. We're working into the fascia. We're breaking it up. We're hydrating it. And so we're working through that kind of tension and adhesion. And so again, go slow, take your time, be careful, breathe, and feel amazed maybe. Again, no expectations. Some people love it, some people don't. But I will say that if I don't do these practices for a while and then I do it, it's a lot harder when I do it again because everything is so much tighter. And it takes a lot more to kind of work through that. So be patient with yourself, be easy on yourself. So all of the pictures here, again, are all from Google Images, and I've selected them just mostly to kind of help to illustrate some of the techniques that you can do. We've done the foot massage, football, hands. I think I did that a little bit in our first practice together, side to side, front, back, same kind of idea with the foot. I like to do like up the forearm, both sides of the forearm. It can be kind of tricky to roll the ball or the foam roller in ways that work best for you. So again, you have to kind of play with it and practice a little bit. So there's the rolling kinds of techniques, but then there's also just like the trigger point kind of hold techniques. And so with this like sciatica pain relief, again, we want to be really careful with any of these kinds of techniques. But this is just really, again, just putting that ball in the right spot and holding. How do you find the right spot? Well, you have to, again, you have to listen to your body. You have to pay attention to where that placement feels best for you, and then move it around a little bit. You can have it in one spot, move it to another spot, continue to hold, put more pressure, less pressure. Again, what feels best to you. You can see the two balls here, one on top of the other, and that's kind of to the side of the spine, and then kind of between like the hips and the rib cage in that area right there. And you can do that on one side and then the other side. You can see where these tennis balls are placed on this illustration here. These are really nice points to work on. This one right under the arm is a really nice one as well. This can be done lying on the floor. It's usually more intense if you're on the floor because obviously gravity and your body weight is working on that pressure. When you go against the wall, it can be a little bit harder to control the ball, but you have more control over the pressure. So for instance here, and you can see like you might move your arm in different ways as you roll the ball. You can do two on the wall. It's a little tricky, like here on the floor. On the floor it's tricky. On the wall it's tricky as well. I always see that I replicated a picture here so you get a little bit closer view of that. My favorite is here. I start where we did in our first practice, more up here in the upper trapezius area, and then move it down. So one ball is on each side of the spine. You're just moving it down, moving it down, moving it down. That is pretty magical stuff there. We can work into much smaller and tighter spaces, like we can work into the scalenes on the neck, for instance. We can work into the front of the neck here. We want to be, again, very careful with that pressure and really listen. We can do where the jawbones meet. We can do, I think I have here, yes, the pecs, that kind of tightness in the pecs, the calf and Achilles here can be done. Again, anywhere that you find those spaces between the bones, you can do this myofascial release work and find the benefits from it. Finally, I just wanted to include this illustration just of foam rollers, some various different foam roller kinds of techniques. The foam roller is really nice, like the tennis balls on the back do a little bit more pinpointed kind of myofascial work. The roller is nice to just kind of roll out the entire backside of the body. You can open your chest over. I don't have that illustrated here, but again, lots of different things that you can do. So a lot of different techniques, always keeping these things in mind. Breathe, pay attention, go slow, and tap into these magical tools that we have available through these different techniques.